go this way. Show you this is what we've already had done. Our touch screen has all been updated. This has all been AirMod, Allen Bradley PLC. This is what we ended up replacing most of this. Because last year we had a lightning strike and they came to work on it and it had to be completely updated because it was completely outdated. So that's all new.
Okay.
We'll come this way. This is the blower room. It's kind of loud, but at least you can just take a picture. Already for that, for these we had one rebuilt, so we have one on standby in case it goes bad, and we should be in good shape as far as the blowers go. We've had some other work done on them also, as far as like the bearings. So these are the VFDs that control the blowers, and they help to ramp them up and ramp them down rather than have them. These we have to, they're kind of heat, they're sensitive to the heat and to dust, so we have to make sure that these are clean. Okay. Sometimes they've been faulting out on us. Belt press room is kind of loud also. You won't be able to talk too much in there. Where we store the sludge. We're talking about possibly getting a quote from Coldy Construction to see if we can add on, because we have room behind this, to maybe have them extend it for the office, for the furnace that runs here, that's above the office.
Okay.
And we can possibly just go up there and look at that also. That might end up possibly needing more work or possibly replaced here in the near future. This is the belt press. This is the belt press. Right now I have a couple holes through. We'll have to readjust it.
That's what ends up in that shed that you want to expand?
Yeah, that's the sludge that comes off the press.
It falls down a chute to a truck below?
Yeah.
And you haul it back there?
We'll look at that truck also. This is the pump that injects the polymer. This 55-gallon drum is full of polymer. This pump pumps the polymer into this system to mix with the sludge. Right?
How long will a 55-gallon drum of polymer last?
In the summertime, it could last a couple of months. In the wintertime, it could last 3 weeks. This is done, I don't know, this is probably, I don't know how old this is. This is something that might need some attention here in the near future. These are the pumps, the sludge pumps that pump the sludge, that pull the sludge from the digester. We replace one of these pumps, both of these pumps yearly. They're $2,000 a piece. It's another topic of discussion about getting an entirely different pump. Something that will move a larger volume of sludge. These pumps, the way it was designed, they're higher than the digester. So they have to draw the sludge rather than push it. They get it full of rags until they get wore out real quick. So it's something I'd like to address. But it's not just a matter of getting a new pump and putting it in. It's a matter of revamping a lot of different things. So it'd be kind of pricey. That winch right back here is what we use to lift these drums of polymer through that hatch. So the polymer comes in down below and we lift them up with that winch right there. This is the control panel for these pumps. This is the line that goes out to the digester. It draws sludge. This is the future. The event that we add on to the plant in the future. Okay. We can put essentially like another plant. So that would be future. These are the panels for controlling things that have to do with the belt press. This has to do with the furnace that's above the headworks building that heats that room. Right now it's in summer, and in the winter we put it in winter mode. It's the thermostat for the furnace that's above the headworks building. This is just a regular panel that controls the exterior lights and these vents that are mechanical or controlled by thermostats that are no longer working. Some of them work, some of them don't. These are the control panel for the rake screen. A lot of that controls are in here. And for the control guys when they're working on that rake. This is the grit chamber. This is where the water comes set. This is the first, or I should say the second process. The first one is the rake screen. It comes through the rake screen, then it comes into the grit chamber where all the grit settles out, and then it spills over a weir. And you can see with the weir, stand here, water spills over this weir, and then it goes out to the plant. So it's aerated. An air line that comes in and aerates to help separate the grit and also to remove for odor. It puts oxygen in the water. You can't really see it if you look down. This is the chamber, this is the channel where all of the sewer for the whole town comes through this channel, goes through this rake screen. Okay? All the sewer goes through there. And those rakes pick up the rags that we don't want going into the treatment system, pick them up, drop them through this chute down below, and then those go to the dump.
This is just a couple years old.
This is only a couple years old. I'd say maybe 4 years at top.
Yeah,
three and a half years old.
Because it was an auger.
Before that, it was an auger system.
Yeah.
This is a much better system. This is pretty much brand new. This is the grit classifier. This separates the grit. It pulls it out of that grit chamber that we saw. There's a pump that we're going to go down and look at. We'll see it. It draws that water up into the cyclone, where it separates the grit from the water.
Is this grit classifier what we would talk about needs replaced?
We got a price on replacing this. We don't necessarily have to replace the whole thing. We have a price for that. But we're going to want to replace this auger that's on top. You see this auger on top of here? That auger that's spinning right there. That's what we're talking about. Pulling out, replacing, also replacing this at the same time. The cyclones should have a life expectancy of almost forever. It's usually typically don't go bad. But the problem is on the bottom, the auger runs through here. A lot of that water that has a lot of ammonia in it can eat through this. And it's been welded and fixed before. We open up this valve about once a week, try to clean that out. And you'll see water kind of spills over the top of this. Water comes up and separates the grid, spills over that weir. It drags the grid up that spiral. Then falls into the same area where the racks go. You can see right now, the grid pump is running. If you look down here, this is the water that's circulating from the grid chamber and going back down through into the grid chamber, circulating. And it's just removing the grid. So the belt press water also comes through this channel. The one on the left is a bypass to bypass the grid chamber in the event that we have to shut this down, pump it out, clean it out. We had it in bypass last year. We had this backed out about 2 years ago. We had to put a clamp on the as you see going down where the airline goes down. We had to put a clamp on that because the water's spraying. It's kind of toxic. This water has a lot of like ammonia, I'd say, in it. It's acidic, and so it pitted and ate away at it. So there's a pot. We had gotten a price for working on that line going down. At some point in the future, from where that union is down, may have to be replaced. This is the actual treatment basins. You'll see these things on top right here. These are called actuators, okay? There's a lot of them that are all in the plant. And we're looking at a price for either replacing all of them or have them all rebuilt. Having them rebuilt wouldn't be, I wouldn't recommend that they just rebuild them. I would say replacing these.
What's it do?
What this does is when, these are set on timers, okay? And that panel right there, and then also in the touchscreen panel. And when one of these basins calls for the air to come on or to shut off, these are controlled by pneumatic lines that are pressurized by compressors, these air lines. And so there's a solenoid that tells inside the panel that tells that tells the panel back in the office when it's time for these to either shut off or turn on, and it turns this actuator, which in turn turns a butterfly valve inside here, shuts it off or turns it back on. And so there's several of them out here on the plant for either the basins or for airlines or for the RAS to return to come on or turn off.
Okay.
What we have is several diffusers, okay, air diffusers that the airlines come in from the blower room. The blowers push air into the plant through the diffusers, and the diffusers break that air down into smaller bubbles, which makes it put air into the water. So there's multiple, right? And we've had to pull them out and sometimes get them unplugged or replace some of the brackets on them. And so there's a valve for each one. So each diffuser has its own shut-off valve. And we control to balance the air so that the air is even throughout the whole plant through those valves. Okay, that's something that over time you might see, like those rubbers on the bottom there might start leaking, or maybe a valve needs to be replaced. They're 20 years old, so there's a chance that at some point we may have to take the plant down. Either a basin might have to come down, or we may have to work on these brackets that hold them to the wall, or something on these may have to be replaced or fixed or worked on. If you look at this line, this PVC line down right here, that's where That's part of the sludge line that goes up into the bell press room where the sludge pumps were that draw the sludge. This is the digester. This is where we draw sludge out of this, up through the sludge pumps and into the bell press, and we press as the polymer. This is the digester. Okay, this is wasted sludge. That airlift right here every day or every evening at a certain time for so many minutes draws sludge out of this wasting tank and waste into the digester. Pulls sludge out of the treatment system itself. So that's the airlift. It's got solenoids on it. It's a pretty simple concept. The airlift, the airline that goes down, pushes sludge into the digester. That's an airlift. Okay, currently this diffuser's plugged because it's not really, you can see it's not really bubbling very much. So we gotta pull it out, unplug it, replace the brackets on it. This is the wasting tank. About 50% of the returned sludge comes back into that wasting tank. The other 50% of it spills over into the selector tank. Okay, these are the bridges. If you look down, these are the clarifiers. This is the last stage. Out there is the first stage aeration basin. Those are the second stage aeration basins, and they alternate. The left side is aerating. They aerate for 120 minutes. When those are done, they switch and these two basins will aerate. First stage, second stage, clarifier. From the clarifier, it goes through the launders, and then you can't see it because I've got them covered, but they spill over a weir, and then it goes out through the UV, and it's then out.
And why do you got fish?
We do have fish. You can't see them currently.
I saw it earlier.
They were put in here to tell us whether or not there's enough oxygen in the water. If there's not enough oxygen, before we had DO probes, the fish would tell us if there weren't had enough oxygen in the water, because they'd come to the surface and try to be sucking air off the top. We could tell if there wasn't enough oxygen in the water. Those are the skimmers. They have floats on them. They skim off the top of the clarifiers all of the floating debris that we don't want going through the plant, and they will, or we don't want going out, so they'll skim it off. So we've got, those are another set of air lines that have hoses that run to them. There's a lot of small stuff that, like fittings, that don't do well in the UV. So we've got, so there's another actuator, there's a smaller one. You see that smaller actuator? That's for the RAD. Some of the pneumatic lines that they had were replaced with these black ones that don't get eaten up in the UV rays from the sun. If you look at this one, see how it's gotten discolored, come off of it, and it's brittle. If you were to grab a hold of that, it could break. So a lot of the newer plants are going to a line or to a tubing that doesn't break down in the UV, like the black lines right there. So we're always coming out and replacing those. So we need to, you know, when we replace them, we probably should be going back with that. So you saw that one turn. That's when the RAS turned off. Okay, you got a fish. Okay, yeah, those are goldfish. They can live in some pretty harsh environments, so they eat the algae. Walk out from here. So the selector tank, clarifiers, the last stage. Clarifier is the last stage. The sludge settles in the bottom of the clarifier, and the clear water, the effluent that we want to go out, goes out. Okay, so I mentioned about the actuators before because we were talking about replacing them. Because there's going to come a time where we're going to just have to start replacing them, and they're kind of pricey. Part of the upgrade when we did the panel were these DO probes that we have in the water, and they tell us what the oxygen levels are in the water, and they're connected to the blowers through the PLC, which will, when DO, depending on what we want for DO, they'll ramp the blowers up. If there's not enough, there's too much DO or where it starts to, they'll ramp the blowers back down, so they modulate. This little screen we have here is inside is the name of this, and it's the name of these DO probes, and it's actually telling us right now what the DO levels are in both basins. Okay. And this is part of this. It's also tied to the touch screen. If you want to come over here and look over the edge, this is the surge tank. Right now it just has rainwater in it. It's got some duckweed growing in it. I just didn't want to pump that out into the plant yet. I pump it out periodically just to get the water out of there. But this is the tank that we're talking about using as a fermentation tank for phosphorus removal. That's the panel that has the controls, and they're in that panel there for this pump that we're going to talk about putting on a timer, and there's a lot of things that we're going to do, or that I'm going to try. That's the winch that pulls the pump out in and out in case we had to pull it out. Okay. We're going to tie on to those ductile iron lines and bring that pipe around and bring it to pump the fermented water to that selector tank. For some reason, Dave was telling me when the plant was first built, they had a problem with the concrete there for some weird reason. It's been like that since day one. We love airlines. This pipe you see here was one of my. I'm going to use this pipe that I didn't take it out because I had used it when I tried for phosphorus removal before. I brought all the RAS and the skimmer water back to that tank. It didn't work. I took it all out. Those panels you see up there were for what they call a high flow. This is on the sides. I'd like to maybe use some of these solenoids that aren't being used anymore in here. I'd like to cap those lines off. Bring the water down far enough to cap that off. Some type of sonic on the side right there, that piece of looks like PVC. It's a sonic sensor that goes into that panel and tells you what the water level is here. If it gets too high, it would open up that high flow and allow water to come out. And so I don't know if sometimes water is actually getting by through that second stage or not, so that's why I want to draw it down, cap it off, eliminate that actuator altogether. But we don't have a problem with that. You can see how the water level dropped a little bit in that clarifier when the RAS kicked on, because it actually draws down. It's pulling sludge off the bottom of the clarifier. Because we don't have a problem here because we're so underloaded. Just open it up real quick and show it to you. We don't go into this panel much anymore because we control everything from the touch screen down in the office. All right, so this is basically the setup of what it looks like out there at the plant. Sequox, that just means a basin. Sequox 1 and 2, RAS. And this is every basin, the digester. You put it in auto, turn it off, turn it on. We used to control everything from here. Now we control everything from the panel inside the office. I'm not even using that anymore. This is a wasting for the wasting tank. It's a heater for when it gets cold. Sometimes I plug it in. It's been difficult for me to keep power out here. These are all the solenoids that control the actuators. There's quite a bit going on in here. And this stuff is, again, communicating with that touch screen. So now you hear that just switched over to turn the RAS to come on again. Pump is that comes, so this tank, that's the grit chamber. It's actually lower than what you see at grade. It goes down lower than that. This is the pickup that we use to haul sludge. You can see the sludge falling down through the chute from upstairs. So we're drawing sludge right now out of the digester through that belt press that you saw upstairs. It falls into here. We dump that sludge in those basins until it gets full, and then we have it hauled off. We just had one of these heaters replaced. They're a lot smaller now than they were making them. This building is heated with electric, but down here are these electric heaters. They're on fans. Again, that's that scuttle hole where we drop the polymer off here and we bring it up through that scuttle hole, and that winch is what we use to bring it up. Okay, so this is the grid pump. So that grid chamber is actually down below the floor level, and this grid pump draws the water from the grid chamber through this pump, past this check valve, up to through the grid classifier, and separates the grid. This is a panel. I'm not going to get open these, but there's timers in here, there's relays, there's all kinds of stuff. We've had this has been rebuilt. We had this pump rebuilt because we couldn't find one that really compared to it to match everything up. So we had to take it out because it's such a good pump. And the balloon was completely shot after 20 years. It was shot. So we had to take it out. The balloon was resurfaced on the inside, and we put it back in. These ABS pumps will go forever. Some of the gauges probably need to be replaced. These are magnetic meters, flow meters, that tell us how much flow is coming through the plant. Okay, so we have two pumps down there in the main lift station, which we'll go look at. These tell us what the flow is. This goes so from the main lift station, it comes through here, and then it runs upstairs. It goes into that channel that we saw that goes through the rake screen. Okay, it tells us when we pump. Right, these are calibrated once a year. We have these calibrated once a year. These are the two lines that draw sludge from this is the one that's being used right now. It's up in the digester. This is the future, the one we're looking at upstairs. These tally up how many gallons that we're pumping through the plant. Once a month we reset them, and we write them down and send it into the state. Also, this is also being recorded at the touch screen in the office. So we also can see like what several days ago, like for 7 days of how many gallons we pump daily. This line comes from the belt press. You can see it says belt press F1 on. You can check it out. We've already replaced this. This is about 4 years old. This is the compressor that controls the pneumatic lines for the belt press. Alright, so this is the last channel coming from the plant, and the clarifiers that comes through these UV ray bulbs. I don't know if you can look down and see the bulbs really. Right now we're pressing. You can see water from the line. Just look at the bulbs. So that's one bank of bulbs, there's another bank of bulbs here. So altogether there's 60 bulbs, I believe, between the two of these. It was designed by this Trojan system to be able to alternate banks. So one bank could run for a while and turn that one off with another bank. But the last operator, when he was here, said he had a hard time with this whole thing. He's having trouble with it, so he just ran both banks at the same time. It's not hurting anything. It just means we're getting more disinfection. Typically, I've been changing these bulbs out yearly. And this is the chamber the water goes through, and it spills over that weir right there. See that pipe? Goes out to a vault outside. So that, from there goes off the creek. You look on this side right here, over on this side. That's that valve, that stem right there, we use that wrench to turn. We'll draw this whole tank right down. There's a valve that'll open up and draw this whole thing down. That gray pipe you see right there going through the wall, they used to reclaim the water here and reuse this water. It's non-potable water. Since we've done away with that, I'm going to show you the system that's part of the system that used to be here. It's a fan that runs on a thermostat that draws air through here. Also, you'll see that there's hanging units. These gas hanging units. I just wanted to point that out because there's also 3 more of those in the main shop over here. Okay, it's kind of loud in here. Get that off for a second. It's kind of loud. It's going to startle you. It's going to pop right here. It's loud. Anyway, these are the compressors. Let me shut this off real quick. We've had to replace this one. We talked about getting a bigger one or bigger one because it doesn't have a whole lot of capacity for working on any kind of like tires or anything out here. But these 2 compressors, we alternate them monthly. That one's newer. They pressurize this tank. This air dryer is what this is. These are these desiccant dryers. And it takes the moisture out of the air that goes through the plant. So when in the wintertime, it doesn't freeze those actuators out there. Okay. This is fairly new. This came from Aramon. Yeah. So this is what generates the air to control the actuators out of the plant. That's the finished product. And a lot of times it's cleaner looking than the water coming out of the tap. This is the main lift station. All of the sewer from the entire town comes through here into this lift station. It's 25, 30 feet down.
Is this the beginning point?
This would be point A as far as the plant is concerned, yes.
Yeah.
It's got 2 ABS pumps down there.
How deep is it?
About 25 feet, maybe 30 feet.
Okay.
There's 2 check valves when it comes out that we had replaced recently.
Both these check valves have been replaced because you can see they're brand new. That's a bypass. These are the two lines that come out of that wet well, run up to the headworks building. If you just want to take a quick look, there's a lot going on inside here. I mean, it's just another panel that we've had transducer and a transducer. Place, just a lot of relays. The panel that controls the main lift station. Taking me from the last time. So this is the main lift station, which is run not only by, it's run by a transducer and also backed up by float switches. So those transducers could be $1,000 for each, just a transducer. So in here is the old blower for the old plant that hasn't been used for a lot of electrical stuff that I don't know nothing about. There's VFDs that control that lift station. These are the VFDs for it. These are the type of pumps that are down in the main lift station right here. This one's called the Solzer, but this is about how big they are. They're really heavy. They're probably pushing 500 gallons a minute. This one was $15,000. This is just our generator that we hook onto, that we drag to the lift station in case there's a power outage, because we don't have a generator by our Fox lift station, which is important, and 2 other lift stations on the industrial park in the high school that we don't have generators on, but that aren't as critical. Typically we try to bring that one out and bring it to the Fox lift station when we have a power outage. And this is the old plant that I would like to do something with, either for sludge storage or possibly for phosphorus removal or an extra clarifier in the event that we ever had to, or for maybe turn it into a storage building. You know, well, the plant from 1969. I think it's pretty sturdy out here still. If we ever decided to do anything with it, we'd have to take all this metal out here, scrap it, and drain it out.
Is there any way we can keep this thing drained?
I'm planning on pumping it out. I want to start pumping it out with just at least pump it out with a pump and see what it looks like, what we'd be up against as far as getting all the metal out of here and just scrapping all the metal and seeing what our options were.
Okay.
Because it's just sitting here with standing water, which I'd like to get rid of. So I plan on pumping it out. This is the generator.
What's a generator like this cost?
Good question. Now, I heard, and I don't quote me on this, but I heard somewhere around 400. So I would say that you could probably guess that it would, I don't know, I heard anywhere between 250 and 400,000. It's kind of a big range. I don't know how true those numbers are. Check our fuel. We're still doing pretty good. We've had this heater. This is a heater for the antifreeze coolant that runs through this. We've had to have that worked on, that replaced, and some other sensors replaced on this. There's a lot going on inside these panels here that I really don't know much about. there's fuses in there. When this, so it kicks over. When the power goes out, it kicks over somewhere in here, and also in a panel inside the main building. And then when it switches back over, it switches back over inside here again. And there's some large breakers and a breaker panel inside. We can go look at that. I'll show you the size breakers we have in there. To add on back here, if we decided to have them kind of quote us, I'm just adding on.
The furnace that's above the headworks building, you can't really see it, but that's it. It's kind of outdated. And it's been worked on a few times now in the past couple of years. I've been having to try to find parts for it. It's been kind of hard. That unit right there might cost 20 grand.
This is just some panels for the building here. And these are the same kind of, some of these breakers are just like the same ones that were in that headworks building. I believe it's this one here we had to replace. They had it replaced a few years back because it kept tripping every time the generator would turn back over to go back to city power. And from what I understand, they're just $5 breakers. I'd end up having to look into putting a new unit up here. Instead of going with a Carrier, maybe going with an Armstrong.